Hello, everybody, and welcome to The View from the Top. I am Brian Friedman, your host, and we've got an amazing show to you today. We're going to be talking about a new blueprint for global mobility. How about that? A whole new blueprint for global mobility. And I'm super excited that our guest today is David Carmichael from CGI. So a fascinating conversation coming up. It's an exciting week going on. I know we've got ERC at the moment, and best wishes to Anna Pam and Mark Birchall and everybody else who's out there from ERC. We're hearing great things. It's about it being a super interesting conference this year. So all looking good. And of course, the Benivo team are out there, and hopefully you'll all get to meet them. More on that later when we do our little Benivo update. But as I said, this week we are doing a new blueprint for global mobility. People are coming in from all over the world, which is great to see. You know how it works, everybody. When you come in, there's Stephanie just come in from Philadelphia. Please hit the put your name out there. Tell us who you are, where you're coming from. I can see we've got people coming in from Michigan. We've got Ian Darling from Eugene, Oregon. People coming from all over the world. Sarah Leclerc Schurett's in the house. Excellent. Imelda's with us, of course, a guest just the other week. So exciting times we've got ahead. Let's move on. So as I said, if you want to join in the conversations we go through, write in the comments box, tell us who you are, where you are, what's going in your world, and let's make this as interactive as possible. We are live on, hiya Natalie, good to see you. To Daniel, good to see you coming in from London town. We are live on LinkedIn, we are live on YouTube, and of course we are available on Spotify. So if you want to see us, watch us on LinkedIn or YouTube, or indeed listen to us on Spotify. So that's really, really exciting stuff. Now, of course, I mentioned ERC before, but of course, many of you will want to get your CPE codes. You might want to get your CPE codes from ERC, from SHRM, for HRCI. So I'll put those up there. So I'm leaving those up there for a second so you can see what the codes are. And if you want your codes from ERC, courtesy of our good friends there, then just jot down the number that's there for your GMS, your CRP codes. If you want your HRCI codes or your SHRM codes, again, courtesy of our good friends at Rocket Mortgage, that's all there. Meanwhile, what's been going on in the wonderful world of global mobility in the last 7 days? Well, I tell you what, why don't we have a look and just see what's been going on in our world? So there we have it. That is all our breaking news. And congratulations to everyone who's been promoted in the last 7 days. Congratulations to everyone who's got a new job. And if you're looking for a job, well, there's plenty of exciting jobs out there that we've listed. Now, if you've got some news you want to share with us for next week, for example, you've got a new job, you've had a promotion, or indeed you've got a post somewhere in your organization that you want to fill, then shoot us a line and we'll do whatever we can to help promote your position, your celebration, or your new role. Next week, we've got an amazing show for you. You may remember last week, we talked about global mobility at Microsoft, and we talked about the interns and the exciting things that they are doing there. Next week, I'm really honored. We've got Microsoft back to do episode 2 of this 2-part mini series we're doing with Microsoft. And there we're going to be talking about guests. So in Microsoft speak, a guest is someone who is not an employee, but is going to travel for Microsoft. It might be a visitor to their campus. It might be someone coming for an interview. It might be a researcher coming to spend some time with them, whatever it might be. And that is massively complicated and also massive in terms of volumes. You are going to find that fascinating. We're going to be talking about Microsoft and how they work with Amadeus, their travel company, and the travel side of it, and how that all ties in with Benivo. Trust me, you will not want to miss the show next week when we talk about global mobility at Microsoft part 2. So pretty exciting stuff going on. As ever, we always like to talk about immigration. And as ever, we are honoured to have backstage with us Julia Onslow-Cole from Fragomen, who will be talking to us about an immigration update in just a moment. But you know how it works. If you want to get Julia onto stage, you know what you've got to do. You've got to hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's welcome onto our stage Julia Onslow-Cole.
Hi, Brian.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Very well, thank you.
And I gather I know you're at home, but you just got off a plane first thing this morning. So tell us about your trips and what you're going to be talking to us about today.
Yes, I just arrived in the UK at 5:36 this morning from Riyadh. And I'm just going to be talking just for a few minutes about Saudi Arabia. And I wanted to thank very much Kevin and Dahlia in our Riyadh office, and also our wonderful Jen Fackelman. She's online here, and she's doing lots and lots of visas for people who are.
Shout out to Jen Fackelman. Oh, she's there. Yeah. Hello, everyone. She says hi to Jen.
Yeah. So she's really doing loads of work for business people who are going into Saudi Arabia. So just a few minutes on Saudi Arabia. It's really, really busy there. We had a round table, and there's big problems in terms of schooling, very difficult to get schools at the moment, and also accommodation, because it's so popular. So many people are going there and so many business trips. And although some of the projects like NEOM have slowed down a little bit, a lot of the other projects are really racing ahead. So many companies.
NEOM slowed down, has it?
Just a tiny bit, yes. I think that's because a lot of there's so many giga projects going. I think it's felt that, it's probably better to, parts of NEOM are still really, really strong, but I think they're trying to sort of moderate, the giga projects so they're not all going at one time.
For people who don't know, who are maybe a bit less familiar with Saudi, just very quickly, what is NEOM and what is a giga project?
So a giga project is basically the name of one of the really massive projects. And NEOM is 31 times an area, 31 times New York City, the size of Belgium. It will be effectively a whole city in itself. And it is literally state of the art, just the most fantastical things that you could think of in the future, centered around things like, amazing ski resort, Olympic Winter Games going to be held there, enormous lake which will take 2 years to fill. It's going to be so big. A development called.
We're going to be going skiing in Saudi Arabia.
Yes. Unbelievably, up at that in that corner area of Saudi Arabia, it's actually cold enough to use snow machines. It's all really incredible. But anyway, so lots of people, lots of visitors, and we've been talking about it for some time, but there's a regional headquarters initiative, so that if you want to bid for some of these major government projects, you have to have a regional headquarters in Saudi Arabia, which means that you have to have a global headquarters, and then the regional headquarters in Saudi Arabia, you have to have 2 countries reporting in. Now, what happened is the Saudi government was hoping that by 2030, because it's part of the 2030 vision, they were going to get 500 companies to move. But already by October 2024, today, they've already got 517. So that's how amazingly successful this project has been. And if you have your regional headquarters, you have lots and lots of benefits. So you're exempted from Saudiization, which is the strict requirement to employ so many Saudi nationals for 10 years. You're exempt from that for 10 years. Also, you're allowed to have foreign nationals work in certain areas which otherwise will be exempt, like HR. So HR, you generally can only have Saudi nationals, but you can if it's a regional headquarters. And there's no limit on the work visas that you can apply for. But the other side of it, you have to have 15 employees, 3 at very senior level, and the whole of the activities of the regional headquarters cannot be commercial. So they have to be finance, HR, marketing, but they can't be commercial. So you have to have a commercial entity, and then this regional headquarters is a separate entity. So the update really is that, it's very popular. More and more companies are doing it. It's far exceeded what the government had thought. And the really important thing is that there are exemptions that are being given. The Saudi authorities, realize actually a lot of these requirements are very difficult for companies to do on day one. So there is some flexibility. And then the other thing I just wanted to quickly mention is that Saudi has opened up their premium residency program. And these are schemes that apply to individuals as opposed to company-sponsored applications. And they can potentially lead to permanent residence. Now, this happened in Dubai, so the UAE. What happened is that the UAE introduced a golden visa scheme, which applied to individuals. And then companies had to decide, are they going to allow people to take up these individual visas, or are they going to insist that they have visas that are attached to their companies? And the kind of same things now happening in Saudi. And when we did our, Fragaman held our HR roundtable in Riyadh, this was real hot topic, a really big hot topic. So one of the categories of premium residency is called special talent. So that's, and so there's a lot of discussion with companies like, should we be promoting this? Should we be, signing off on these applications if the individuals come to us? What should we do? And there are some real benefits for the individuals. They don't need exit and entry visas. They're also able to own property. There's also special permission for dependents. And as I say, it's a visa category that stands on itself. But if they leave you, if you sign the form and they leave the company, then within 2 months, they do have to find another company. So it's not quite independent status, but it is a big issue, and it's something that companies who are operating in Saudi really need to think about and get a policy. And having lived through it all with Dubai and the UAE, I think it's really important to start thinking about it now.
Okay, I mean, that's amazing. There's so much going on. The way that Saudi is being transformed is just incredible. So, I mean, all credit to them. And I know how heavily you are involved, Julia. So, Julia, many, many thanks for that update. We're now going to move on to talk about tax. And we've got some really interesting stuff to be sharing with you on tax this week. So everybody, you know how it works. As we say goodbye for the week to Julia Onslow-Cole, and we say welcome to Julie Barron. Please, everybody, hit the heart button, hit the like button, and of course, hit the applause button. Hey, Julie.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Very well. Now, you're somewhere different today, aren't you?
I am. I am at the WERC conference. Very exciting.
You are National Harbour. How's it? How is
I
it?
am, and I have a button that says I'm a first-time attendee. Look at that.
Wow.
I've
And
never
tell
been
me
before.
what's your impression on the ground?
Well, I just arrived early this morning, and it's packed with people. There's so many people here. There's lots of booths in the setup area of lots of different vendors. I haven't seen the Benivo booth yet, though. I bet there is
Oh,
one.
it's
Anyway,
somewhere.
I'm excited. I'm actually speaking tomorrow on a panel talking about tax, so super exciting.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah,
So Richard Majusi saying he expects to see a cowboy. So
that's fun. I'm
we've
a
got
knight. I'm not a cowboy. I'm a knight.
we've got a baron. What more could we want?
There we
We're
go.
far more upmarket than just cowboys. We got our very own baron.
That's
Anyway, Julie, I know you've got some interesting tax updates for us. So talk us through what's
yeah.
been going on in tax
Yeah,
land.
so we're going to talk a little bit about the US election, and this was a suggestion from Julia. So thank you, Julia, for that. So a couple updates from what's happening here in the US. We're only a couple weeks out from the election day. And we had an interesting discussion about how US elections work, but we do have early voting. So there's something called early voting, and that is mail-in ballots, which I understand a lot of countries have, where if you, for some reason, can't go to the polls on election day, you can mail in your ballot. But we also have early voting here in person. So I'm a Virginia resident. There are various places around my county where I can just go and vote whenever I want. So that's been open. It's probably about a month before the election that those open, that people can vote. So all the, the candidates are hot on the trail. They're doing all kinds of things. They're making all kinds of promises. But the latest stat I saw online was that 21 million people have already voted. So it's a
Wow.
huge percentage. And I also saw a statistic that last presidential election, 2020, 150 million people voted. So 21 out of 150 million is a lot of people who have already early voted. And they expect a lot more.
About 15% or something. Really
Yeah,
voted.
it is. It is. That's a huge percentage of people voting early. And it's not over the early voting. So there'll be more people early voting. So, that kind of changes the way people see things, that those people have already made their decision and mailed in their ballot or voted in person. And so that's already happened. So it'll be interesting. What they do say, though, is it's hard to tell how many people will mail in ballots this time versus last time, because last time, of course, was 2020. So a lot of people didn't want to go to the polls because it was COVID. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not sure, are we going to get more now because it's just easy to do and people liked it? Or will it be less because they actually want to go to the polls? So I myself, I will go to the polls. I like to vote in person on election day when I know I'm going to be in town. So I kind of like the tradition. Yeah.
There's a bit of theatre to it, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of like to go and just
democracy.
yeah, and you get a little sticker. So I like my little sticker. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to comment on was a comment that Trump made last week, or no, I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, that he is going to, and he worded it as he is going to stop double taxation of Americans living overseas. And of course, the devil's in the details, and he gave no details, so we don't really know what that means. But that got a huge round of applause from all of our expats living overseas, especially the long-term expats who've been paying tax. And you don't just pay tax, and oftentimes you are not truly double taxed, right? You get credits for the taxes.
So is he saying that the US might abolish the concept of taxing people based on citizency rather than residency?
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly
right. Oh my gosh.
So it's a huge deal.
You've had that since the earliest days, haven't you? I mean, that's not...
Yeah. Yeah. So what's interesting about that is a lot of people, like I said, don't necessarily pay double tax, but it's all of the administration around filing foreign bank account forms and declaring all your foreign assets and all of these other things that have huge penalties if you get it wrong. So maybe even if you're not truly paying double tax, you just have a lot of administration because you're an American overseas. And to be honest, it's not as attractive for you to go and work in a country like Hong Kong where the tax rates are low because you're still paying this high US tax rate. So it doesn't make you as attractive an employee. So we'll see if that actually happens. But that has never been something that I have seen before, having a candidate throw that out as a promise. But I do wonder if it's tied into this early voting and all of the Americans overseas voting early and sending their ballots in already. So it's interesting.
Yeah. So Lynn said,
yeah.
can you repeat that? Is US taxation going to be based on residency, not citizenship?
Well, and again, he didn't say the details, right? So he didn't say exactly what he would do, but he basically said he was going to stop all the double tax for US citizens living overseas. So I think what he was getting at was residency versus citizenship, but we'll see. We'll see what he means. We'll see if it even gets there. We'll see, right? But interesting concept that he was trying to obviously gain votes from people living overseas.
Absolutely. Okay, so I mean, that's an amazing update, Julie. I mean, obviously we'll know in a few weeks' time how this is.
Hopefully we'll know. We'll see. Right?
Okay. So Julie, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate you. We're now going to move on to talk about what's going on with some Benivo updates, and also, of course, just to remind everybody that voting is still open for the top 100 women leaders of global mobility. So with that in mind, we'll run the video that tells you a bit about the top 100 list. We're going to say goodbye to Julie Barron, and we're going to welcome to the stage Benivo's very own Beth Neilson. So everybody, you know what to do. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's say a big, big thank you to Julie Barron, and let's welcome to the stage Beth Neilson. Hi. Oh, I've made a mistake. Let's try that again. I did it. Oh boy, schoolboy error there. I thought I was in control and I wasn't. So I was showing a screen which we're going to be talking about later. Anyway, Beth, it's lovely to have you here and not your screen. So what are you going to talk to us about today, Beth?
Hi, Brian. It's lovely to be here. The first thing was, I think Julie was obviously talking about voting, but as you and I know, and as Tally is constantly reminding me, the most important vote is for your top 100 women in global mobility. Please do get voting. It closes, votes close on November the 13th. A big top tip for you, if you've got a chief people officer, please feel free to share the votes, the link with them. Maybe they can send it out to the company to get people voting for you or leaders in your company as well. You don't have to be in global mobility to make the nomination. So please feel free to share far and wide with your network. So November the 13th, get voting. There's the link. Thanks, Tally. With Julie being at Worldwide ERC, oh my gosh, what an amazing agenda everyone's got available there. If you went to the Benivo breakfast this morning, I hope people had a great time. There is still time to sign up for the Benivo session, which is on 10 uses of AI this afternoon, and that is at 3:15 local time. So if you're watching this, you've still got time to go and sign up and attend that this afternoon in the US. In the UK, which hopefully more people who are watching today will be interested in attending, we've got two amazing events coming up. The first one, as you know, Brian, you and I are going to be at FEM next week. So that's next Tuesday and Wednesday. It's going to be great to see you in person, Brian. And so on the Tuesday, obviously there's sessions all day. And on the evening of the Tuesday, if you're interested in coming along for a meal with the Benivo team, we're having a meal for corporates on the Tuesday evening. Send me a note or ask Tally, and we'll make sure you get an invite. There's already a great group of us going. I'm really excited about that one. And then, of course, on the Wednesday, Brian, you and I will be speaking with the fantastic David, who's joining us today. So we're doing a session on the Wednesday morning. The second event, hopefully, if we can get there with the tube strikes that we know are going on, is on the 7th of November. So fingers crossed, everyone. But I will be presenting along with Nitsan and the amazing Alexandra Oeda from Pearson at GME Live. And that is one of my favorite events of the year. I'm really, really excited about that event. Jam-packed agenda. If you haven't seen it already, again, I think Tanya might be able to send the link so that people can sign up. But yeah, an amazing day. It's going to be fantastic to see people in person. So that's my updates.
So busy time we've got ERC, we've got FEM, we've got GME Live, and then we can throw into that, if we look in the next few weeks, of course, we've got a UK budget, which is promising to be very radical. And indeed, we've got a US election the week after. So everything is going on. So do everybody make sure you stay with The View from the Top to get all the latest news and views, thought processes, etc., as relates to the wonderful world of global mobility. We're now going to move on, and I'm so excited. We have backstage a legend of global mobility, one of the most influential thought leaders in our industry, and indeed one of the nicest guys in our industry. So without further ado, we're going to welcome to our stage David Carmichael. So please, everybody, hit the heart button, hit the like button, and of course, hit that applause button. So there we go. David, you were just private messaging me earlier when I said a legend with a question. Yeah. David, you are a legend of global mobility. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And the audience either know that or will know it within a few minutes as we get into it. But I'm going to start off there because there is something unique about you that I just want to sort of mention. Well, there's lots of things that are unique about you, but I'm going to tell the audience, for those that don't know, which is that many people in our industry have worked overseas. You are the only person I know in our industry who's worked underseas. So why don't you tell us about that and how you got into global mobility via the oceans?
Yeah, sure. So I left school at 16 because I wanted to travel and a bit adventurous. So I went straight into the military at 16, and then decided to volunteer for submarines because I thought, well, that's even more interesting. So ended up, kind of the most interesting time, I think, to be in the submarine service. It was all around the time of Tom Clancy and Red October. So it was a fascinating time, and then became more adventurous as I left the Navy. I went out to the Middle East, working probably about 10 minutes from the border with Israel and Gaza on the Egyptian side of the border, which is obviously pretty sort of topical now. And that was a fascinating time, absolutely amazing to spend time working and living in Egypt and Israel. I spent 7 years out there. I didn't expect to spend that long, but got to see some amazing places and met some amazing people. And then came back to the UK in around 2000. It's frightening to think how long ago that is. Joined PwC, and then the story has developed from there. PwC was my first kind of entry into the realms of outsourcing and mobility, and then moved eventually into what became CGI in 2006.
Okay, and so David, we're going to be talking a bit about CGI and about everything you're doing. And of course, we've got Beth here talking about the partnership between CGI and Benivo. And you've been a client of Benivo for a good few years now, I believe. I can't remember precisely how long, but it must be 5 years or more, maybe.
Pre-pandemic. Yeah, I think 2018 or so, I think.
Okay. And one of the things that you've done, which I find completely fascinating, I think the audience too, is you've completely flipped it. We called it a new blueprint for global mobility. But when you started, you had what I suppose, with a fairly traditional relationship. You had an RMC, and then you had a bit of sort of support coming through, and you flipped all that around. Just want to talk about a bit about how, if you like, that was then and this is now, how you handle mobility, and maybe also just say a bit about the size of the program as well, because it's not insubstantial at all.
Yeah. So cover off the easy one. So size of the program in terms of like traditional expats, where people are working temporarily outside their country of employment. It's at the moment it's around 500 or so. It's 500 or so individuals with their families, with probably 50 to 100% rotation of that population. The far bigger population now, though, is what we're classifying as the international new hires, where we hire talent from a country that won't ultimately be their country of employment. This has by far become the biggest population, where we're tapping into talent from other countries to be employed in a country that CGI is operating in. That number compared to our, say, traditional expat population is more like 4,000 plus or so. Now they're not going through the traditional relocation program, but they are needing some element of relocation support, and they're needing immigration compliance and ongoing tracking, etc. So it's like I said, it's become the population that has become very, very important to us. What was the first part of your question?
I just wanted to understand how you flipped the relationship. Yeah. So we were in a very traditional relocation model, using suppliers on the ground to provide services, to find housing, to support people to find somewhere to live, to understand the country they were moving to, etc. But the population we're predominantly moving are people that are, relatively junior, project-based. They need to go in, they need to be up and running quickly, and at the end of whatever is their project, they'll move back. So it needed to be slick, streamlined, and importantly, cost-effective. The reality is, if we were providing support that made the move cost-prohibitive, we wouldn't win the work and we wouldn't be moving the people. Yeah.
So it had to be efficient and cost-effective. And this is where I think we met you. I remember a few years ago, you and Neilson, and we met in the lobby of the London offices, and we started to talk about the Benivo model. And our idea at the time was to use the Benivo product to supplement the traditional model. But then as we were progressing, we internally thought, why don't we just turn this around, make the digital solution the primary solution, and we'll use the traditional model when we need it. And what we found, over the years, is that we haven't needed the traditional model even as much as we expected that we might. We now rely predominantly on the digital platform.
So this is quite fascinating. It echoes something that came out with the conversation the other week when we had Microsoft on the show, which is that the young generation, I called them Gen Sass in the show last week, but the people who are very tech savvy, if they book a holiday, they don't use a travel agent. They do everything online, and they want a bit of support when they can get it. But most things they want to do online, and they want to do it now, in their own time, and get immediate responses. And in some ways, and I know it's quite controversial to say, but the RMC if it doesn't adapt, is in danger of going the way of the travel agent. That people are going to a technology-first solution where they can. Because Beth, maybe you can come to the conversation here. What are you seeing in terms of what I'm calling Gen Sass? And maybe it's broader than that, but people wanting to take a tech-first approach, if you like, a more traditional approach.
I think you're exactly right, but it's on two sides, Brian. So there's the desire of the employee to get the information when they want it in a format that they can understand it on demand 24/7 without having to talk to someone. So if they have finished work, they're on their phone on the way back from work, on the train, they can just get the information that they need that's not related to their job, that's related to their travel or to their mobility. So that's the first side of it. But equally, there's the global mobility team side of it, where they don't want to send out the same information to everybody via email and not know that the person has actually accessed it. that the person has read it, that they weren't playing on their phone during the 1 hour policy consultation call and didn't take any of it in, and you've got no recourse to say, oh, we already told you that, if it's not in writing and you haven't guaranteed that the person has read it. So I think it's on both sides that the model needed to change because of different needs now in the global mobility space.
Yeah, Beth, that's a really interesting point, right? Because one of the things that we were thinking about is our model of managing the transfer of the assignment was quite traditional as well. You know, so you would, for example, have somebody that sits down, and one of their primary roles was to brief the person who's moving on the move, their terms, what's going to happen, who's going to be contacted, etc. And we still do elements of that, but in reality, you can automate that because most of it is the same, is repeatable, etc. I'll be controversial as well. You know, if you're, for example, if you are obtaining a work permit from somebody, I think there's much of that you can digitalize as well. Yeah, because there are unique situations where somebody needs to be talked to and calmed and have things explained to them about the process. But sometimes, you know, a particular type of visa is a particular type of visa. You can document that. You can digitalize that. You can share information and put a checkbox against it to have that person confirm that they've read it and understood it. I guess what we're aiming for is a scenario where you get a lot of self-service material in a platform where it's easy to digest and easy to say that it's been done and read and understood, but that you've got the backup of somebody to talk to in a complex scenario or where you don't get it. You know, so you don't remove that sort of human interaction completely. You've got the backup, but the primary source is I can log in and see what I need to see in my own time on the tube or whatever, exactly like you said.
No, I completely agree. You've got to have the high touch option available as well. So it's using the technology to give the basic information, make sure that they understand the process, so that you can then use the time with an expert, the time with a person, to ask the questions that aren't answered, to give you that reassurance, and not just to talk through the basics. I remember when I used to do, and I'm sure you did when you were at PwC as well, you used to do the tax briefings, and you used to spend the first 45 minutes saying the same thing, talking them through a form, and then all the questions that they wanted to ask were crammed into the last 15 minutes because that was the only time left to do it. And I think exactly what you're doing, turning it on its head, is revolutionary. And I think it is the way that we've got to go in order to meet the needs of every individual, and make sure we're tailoring and tiering the support required to the individual needs.
Yeah, I mean, it is fascinating. Actually, I'm going to ask the audience a question, and I'm going to ask the same question to Beth and David. And the question is this, describe global mobility in one word. You can only use one word. What's the one word that you're going to describe global mobility? So Beth, whilst the audience is thinking about that one, I'll go with you. What's your one word for describing global mobility?
I thought you were going to go to David first. Okay. I think my definition changes every week, but this week I'm going for meaningful. I think global mobility is a really meaningful process. It's life-changing, and if done well, can just be the path to amazing things.
Okay. And David, what's your one word? What's the one word you'd use to describe global mobility?
I think I think it's fascinating. It has to be fascinating. There are so many one words, right? But it's an area of HR that changes constantly. Every day sort of brings something unexpected, and that for me makes it fascinating. Is why I love the industry, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's Roma came up with the word complicated, and in fact, I was thinking something similar. I think I had the word complex in my mind. And maybe that's what it all ties in. Rob says underutilized. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, I mean, mobility is a bit like a decathlon. That if it was an Olympic sport, you've got to be able to do tax and immigration and HR and logistics and God knows finance and compliance and maybe a bit of security. And I mean, there's so many different skill sets you have to have. And you might come from a background of being an expert in one or the other, but somehow you've got to have everything else. Mirella has said orderless as a word. Absolutely. I mean, it is fascinating, but maybe we ought to drive into a little bit more of the detail. We've talked about, Martin, is hyper complicated. Is hyper complicated one word? I'm not sure. Okay, we'll give that to you as a single word, Marcia.
No.
Yeah, I want to move on. I mean, we've talked about CGI and its transition to Benivo. I mean, David, can you give me a sort of a real world example when you realized that the program as it was unsustainable and why it had to move, if you like, what built the burning platform? And then talking platform, I think then we'll get on to actually looking at the platform.
So partly it was that meeting we had probably in late 2017, 18 in London. And if you remember, you came into the lobby in King's Place. It was that when you started to the platform, and I always remember you bringing some of the Benivo gifts along, the little goodie box. It was that meeting where you talked about the concept, and I went away thinking, okay, there could be something in this. We hadn't kind of decided to flip it round at that point. Then it was when we started to look at the overall cost of moving people, and the feedback we always had from the business and still get today, to be honest, but not specifically about relocation costs, is we need to find ways to make the moves faster, more efficient, and more cost effective. That's the constant pressure on us.
Faster, efficient, more cost effective.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the constant mandate on us. If we could move people yesterday for free, they would love that. But that's the pressure on us all the time. And that was when I think we were looking at the cost of moving people, and we thought, well, okay, if I compare that to the costs that you were presenting at the time, this is what you could save by doing things digitally, and we compared that to what we were paying. That's when it kind of the penny dropped, and you thought, okay, we need to do something different.
Yeah, because I suspect we can't sort of talk about commercial information, but I know you've saved, let's just say, millions and thousands of hours, but I don't know whether you can say anything more about the sort of the efficiency or time savings that you've achieved.
Yeah, if you think about it's not just the cost of service A versus service B. It's much more. It's about the amount of time that you personally spend, or your team members personally spend, or the amount of time that your moving employees personally spend. If you were to put a dollar value on all of that, then you would be looking at considerable savings. Like Beth said, traditionally it would be a briefing at a certain point in the day, dependent on who's available and when. People want access to information now. They don't want to wait, for the next day, for the next available meeting, etc. They need it immediately. They want to read it themselves and not be dependent on somebody reading it to them. And
I think a key thing also to highlight about your results, as far as I'm aware, is it wasn't just the time savings, but actually employees were happier. So from the scores that the team have shared, it was like a 30% increase in employee satisfaction, at least, from the change in this approach, from the previous one to a more accessible information.
Yeah, and there were the kind of soft touches as well. People sort of liked the gift box when they had that. They liked the vouchers idea. Sort of pay later was very popular, etc. So there were all of those elements that people adopted and were new and were sort of appreciated.
Yeah. And I think the thing that we're really proud of bringing to our clients is not just, hypothetically, maybe your employees are happier because you're getting fewer escalations, but it's one of the things that we measure. So we are constantly measuring employee feedback and getting the NPS scores that you're then able to see in real time. So it's not as if we're waiting for a QBR to present them. You've got access on a daily basis to all of those that feedback that you receive, as well as us investigating if it becomes a net promoter score of 6 or less. So it's constantly trying to improve.
As well. I'm sorry, go on, you go.
I was going to move on and actually sort of show a bit of technology, because I think that's interesting. So I think maybe if we could start off looking at the employee side. So should I share your screen, Beth?
Yeah, go ahead. So with David's permission, we're sharing a version of the CGI employee platform. So I am a demo user. So everything on here is obviously just a demo account. And also you'll see when I go into the actions, which is the bit that we wanted to mainly show today, that I'm very late on doing many things, maybe about 3 years late. So sorry about that.
That just takes back to when you joined the company, didn't it?
It does. This is when my demo account was set up. It just shows you how long I've been with Benivo. So the thing to show on this Actions Hub, and David, I'd love you to speak to this rather than us, but is how we've changed that approach for the counselling and for the different tasks that employees had to do to streamline their relocation.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about, when I first joined what was PwC HR outsourcing many years ago, managing assignments for clients, and it was so traditional, right? It was send an email with all the things that you needed to do, have a briefing, follow up on the briefings, many weeks of more calls to talk about things, and that can't be the right way to do it, right? And I know even today that there are companies that still managing the process in that way. What we've tried to do with this this solution is to get all of those repeatable things into this tool so people can see it in their own time, follow up on it, and importantly, sometimes say that they've done it and understood it. So, there might be examples in the Beth where we need to know that somebody has truly understood something and has signed off to say that they truly understand it. So it's auditable. No one can say, weeks later, I forgot to do something because you didn't tell me. And that's what we were
big one, probably the tax equalization policy, right? If people don't sign that and they claim not to understand it, you can be in big trouble if they then come back and say, well, no one ever told me.
Yeah, exactly. We want to avoid those situations where information is kind of that repeatable category, and somebody says, oh yeah, but I didn't do it because you didn't tell me. Well, if it's in a system and they've read it and they've said that they've read it, then we don't get into that kind of discussion. That sounds kind of a bit policing, but it's necessary in some cases. More what we're trying to do is make it easier for everybody to understand what they need to do and when they need to do it. It makes life easier for the people moving, but it also makes I think life easier for the people that are supporting the moving. The internal resources who have probably skilled individuals who don't want to spend all their time doing briefings, repeating the same information over and over through emails or verbally on a phone call.
So that's the employee side. What's the reaction of the employees to doing this digitally rather than sort of like traditionally?
Well, internally, I don't get noise, and if I'm not receiving noise, I take it as a good sign. Beth, I don't know what you see on your side in terms of come to customer satisfaction, etc., but I don't hear noise on this.
No, we are really proud of our NPS and our CSAT scores. We pride ourselves on reducing escalations for all of our clients. And that's not just reducing noise from the employee. It's also, as you said, saving you time and making it repeatable and auditable. So if people are raising escalations, then being able to do something about it. I think one of the things that we've worked with you on and with other customers as well is if there was a process that was causing noise, creating an action or creating content or changing the process to make sure that didn't happen going forward. And obviously, because with Benivo, we don't do the implementation fees and we don't charge the ongoing, you can change the process, change the policy, tweak the action items just to make the system better. So that's been something I think when speaking to the team that work with CGI, was something we've really focused on.
Yeah. The other thought is the more we use this, potentially the more money we save, right? So let's just say, for example, I'll pick on tax services. Let's say, for example, tax services results in a briefing when you go out from your current home, and a briefing when you get into your new home, and a briefing when you return from the old home to then get into the new home, which results in another briefing. So potentially 4 briefings, all with fees. But if you make that largely digital, you've potentially saved 4 fees. Yeah, I'm not saying that the briefing that a tax provider might do, for example, are not valuable, but if you can primarily digitalize it where it's repeatable, and you don't have to pay that set of fees, or you pay a lower set of fees because you're spending less time, physically having to talk to people. Yeah, that's more money saved. But that could equally apply to the immigration process, the payroll process if the payroll is outsourced, for example. So I didn't mean to pick on tax suppliers in particular.
No. We see it with all of the services, and I think if we can show the management platform, we can show you just a bit so everyone how that sort of happens. I think one of the biggest questions that we receive from employees, or we historically see from employees, is where's my immigration? Immigration is a big one. Where's my tax return at, or where's my immigration at? And just being able to see a visualization of that in the same way as like an Uber Eats tracker, it really helps. So on the employee platform, on the management platform.
Let me bring that. I just want to bring the management platform on. But one of the things I'd like to drill down on as we go through this is we've talked a lot on various shows about transitioning from being reactive to being proactive, and maybe share some of the, if you like, proactive steps that can come in, especially using now things like AI and data analytics and all sorts of tech things that we've put in here. So tell us what we're looking at now.
So what I'm currently showing is the management platform. So this is obviously a demo employee. I'm not in the CGI platform anymore. But this is showing for this individual whose services have been initiated, where is everything in the process? And I think the key thing here is that accountability and consistency in process. So it doesn't matter where the person is moving to in the world, or which immigration provider they are using, or even if they're having those immigration steps done in-house, you can follow the same steps through the process. So when something's been completed, everybody gets notified. And I think that's the key thing of that transparency. And again, with all of these steps, because it's auditable, repeatable, traceable, you can see, well, how long is it taking? I think one of the things that gets you most excited, Brian, and we were talking about a few weeks ago, is that time to productivity, the time to landing. And because you can now track all these numbers, being able to see where someone is in the process and will they be able to start the job without having to contact somebody to get the latest update, you can tell the business straight away. So I think that's the thing that I love that we can deliver, and you can obviously see all these timestamps of when things happen as well. And this is on the individual basis, and obviously we can show the reports that show it on a group basis as well.
Yeah, I mean, this time to landing concept was on one of our previous shows, and to me, in a way, it's blindingly obvious, and I hadn't really thought about it before it sort of it came up and started to be put in. But we all do cost estimates, but nobody really does time estimates, and it's just such a obvious thing to be able to do, and which the line would want, is to say, okay, well, we're looking at this particular move. What is both the cost estimate and the time estimate, and have a methodology for doing that. And you can get that by having the data where you can say, well, look, previous moves of this sort of person on this sort of package, this sort of location, this is how long it is. And you can update it in real time, as you can say, well, this is where we're going through, the visa process or some other process, and this is where we are likely to be. I mean, David, what's your experience of this sort of time to landing concept?
Yeah, well, we are constantly asked by the business how long are things going to take, all the time. From the point that they initiate or identify someone that needs to move or be hired, etc. They want to know exactly how long things are going to take. The pressure on that is incredible. So the more we can say around, in a particular scenario, we expect it's going to take, a week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months, etc., the better. On the same vein, in terms of like time, if you remember, I talked about efficiency and cost as well. We get the same pressure on cost. We're constantly asked, you told us it would be $1,000. We know we spent $500. Can you confirm to us how much is left to spend? So there's an idea for you for the future is accruals and tracking costs against estimates. But I really love that timeline, to be honest. If you imagine when we used to sit on trains and not know where we are, and we used to want to know how close we are to home, now you can look up on Google to see where you are on the train line, right? It's the same concept. I want to know exactly where I am at all times, and that does it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that off screen for a moment, but that is a fascinating concept. The fact that we can do that as we've talked about it earlier. I've said it 1,000 times. It's the pizza deliver concept or the Uber concept. You can actually see where something is, and as you said, David, when you're on a train, you can see how it is. So, I mean, having that tracking is so important. So, David, what would you say have been the key benefits to you of transitioning from the traditional approach to the Benivo unified approach?
So it's been more cost effective. I don't want to say cheap, because cost effective is different from cheap.
Yeah,
cheap isn't always cost effective. So I would say, certainly cost effective. I find it's been more agile. Our experience with Benivo is that we can come to you with new ideas, and again, you've got that agility to either listen to what we're asking for, and to potentially adapt elements of that into the program. So the agility has been quite key, to be honest. And then the speed, the efficiency of it, the access to information. I honestly think there is so much more we can do, but that agility aspect potentially gives us the ability to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we've had that. Other people have said that, and I think one of the things that we do, which is maybe very sort of tech company focused that you don't necessarily see in other places, is the concept of a sprint. That we don't do long-term planning. It's all about what can we do in the next month, and it's one sprint after another. And that's very much the focus that we've got. We've only got a minute or so, or a couple of minutes left. But David, I'll ask you one last question, which is, where would you like it to go? I'm asking you for the quick version, though. What do you think is next if you had your sort of magic wand in terms of, redefining processes?
Oh, wow. Well, I would just say the quick answer to that would be more of what we've already seen, more digitalization, more access to being able to do things faster, more efficiently, and more cost effectively. That would essentially be it. We can't rest on our laurels now, right? Looking at what we've done and say, yeah, that's it. We need to take it and continue to run with it.
Yeah, I mean, I
think based on the conversation earlier as well, it's the that larger population of the foreign local hires and the non-traditional mobility that is ultimately now falling into your remit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, really briefly, the scope of the mobility function in CGI and in other companies is constantly expanded as compliance becomes more complex. The definition of mobility grows. So yeah, that really is it. More of what we've already seen to adapt to that changing situation.
Yeah, I mean, it is fascinating. It's the change that is exciting, because we know it's going to change. I mean, this time, 18 months ago, probably none of us had heard of GPT or any of that sort of technology that was coming in. That's going to change. Go back a few years ago, nobody had heard of COVID. So for good or bad, things do change, and in a way, it goes back to some of the words that people have been throwing out. I mean, we've had complex as a word. I think Rob Zeitz threw out the word demanding. I know you threw out the word fascinating, David. Praveen, previous guest on the show, threw out the word exciting, which I think is probably not a bad way to end. I mean, it's all of those things. And I think that's why we all love global mobility so much, and which all brings us neatly towards the end of the show. So Julie Barron had to leave us to go to ERC, which is where she is, but we do have Julia Onslow-Cole with us, and we have Tally. So the gang is back in town. We are at the end of our 1 hour slot. We will be back next week, October the 30th, when we're talking about global mobility at Microsoft Part 2. And that will be a fascinating discussion. So we do hope you can join us. We hope those of you who are out at National Harbour at the moment can attend the FEM session, can attend the Benivo session and join our people there later on today. And as I mentioned FEM, of course, the reason I said that is that hopefully many of you can join us at FEM next week, and indeed at GME Live the week after that. So I'm Brian Friedman. This has been The View from the Top. Thank you to Julie Barron, to Julie Onslow Cole, to Beth Neilson, to our producer Teddy Goran, and above all to our special guest, the legend, and hopefully everybody will now agree, the legend, David Carmichael from CGI. Take care, everybody, and have a great, great week ahead. Bye.
Thanks a lot.